After 30 moves, Gua Heavenly King could already be said to be burning his life force to unleash the 8 love opened. It wasn't just a question of the injuries he had suffered being difficult to recover from, but there was also the significant risk of dying unexpectedly. But as a Heavenly King, what he wanted was victory. So, Gua Heavenly King's forehead veins appeared, then burst, unleashing an even more terrifying "Love never ends." Yes, at this moment, his entire body seemed to be covered in mouths, producing demonic sounds. In reality, this sound was produced by the friction of flesh against flesh. Under such intense friction, he appeared fine on the outside, but half of his internal flesh and blood had already collapsed. Yet, amidst this terrifying momentum, old Demon Duan suddenly stood up and shouted, "Damn it! Electromagnetic sword field. Activate." In the next moment, the electromagnetic sword field spread out, clashing with the sound domain of the demonic tones. For a moment, the sizzling sound of electricity weakened Gua Heavenly King's demonic sounds, and he stood paralyzed on the spot, shocked by the electricity. Duan Yun rubbed his aching temples, feeling extremely frustrated. He hadn't expected this Gua Heavenly King's chanting to be as annoying as countless monks preventing you from flirting with your girlfriend, causing him great discomfort. Thus, he was infuriated. 7 points. To the origin. Qi. As the true Qi coursed through Duan Yun's body, the air around suddenly stagnated, and the vigorous returning essence Qi surged straight to the sky. This time, it wasn't just little Yin's returning essence Qi that soared skyward, but everyone within a 2-mile radius. Gua Heavenly King, already bound by the electric current and barely able to move, felt a stream of Qi rushing into his mind. This airflow seemed as if it was going to lift off his skull, yet it felt incredibly exhilarating, as if he had been loving endlessly. In this pleasure, he leaped straight away. Along with him, the remaining disciples of the White Sock Divine sect leaked as well. In an instant, dozens of columns of returning essence Qi rose from the ground. Duan Yun merged his index and middle fingers, exerting force, and his own returning essence Qi transformed into a large hand that grabbed these columns of smoke together. At that moment, everyone looked as if they had their lifeline seized, their expressions complex. This was Duan Yun's first time refining so much returning essence Qi, feeling like driving an out-of-control sports car, challenging yet thrilling. But with his extraordinary wisdom as backing, he just accelerated unreservedly. In an instant, in the world of returning essence Qi, heaven and earth changed colors. In a short time, all of Gua Heavenly King's returning essence Qi as the leader was refined. Duan Yun had to admit, the stronger the person's returning essence Qi, the harder it was to refine, like a tough piece of braised beef tendon, very hard to chew apart. But what kind of teeth does this young hero have? Nothing can't be chewed apart. The originally massive returning essence Qi column of Gua Heavenly King shrank, while by then, the entangled returning essence Qi was gathering in Duan Yun's palms, forming a spinning top. Break! Boom! Duan Yun pushed with both palms, his palm force carrying 7 points of returning essence Qi out like a mortar shell. A terrifying trench appeared on the ground, the trees along the way exploded into fragments, and Gua Heavenly King along with the group of White Sox disciples were swept up by the palm wind, flying skyward like uncontrollable kites. Because Gua Heavenly King was in his mightiest state due to the 8 love opened, this terrifying palm force did not immediately tear his body apart. But he felt like he was dying. His 4 limbs flailed uncontrollably in the palm wind. Unfortunately, he managed to slap out 12 palms and kick out 11 kicks, more than half landing on himself, striking his vital parts. For example, he felt his crotch had shattered. His chest was flattened by his own hits. Yet he could still live. Gua Heavenly King was pushing his body's potential to the utmost. If you observed closely, you would see spinning Qi force surrounding him. These Qi forces continuously emitted, "Na na na, love never ends" sound, resisting against old Demon Duan's earth-shattering palm. The White Sox sect's White Sox Shocking Heaven Array had always been known as Heaven Shocking, but compared to old Demon Duan's palm, it fell short of shocking heaven. Old demon Duan was too strong. Even the most heaven-shocking palm would have its limits. Gua Heavenly King landed on the snow, still breathing. The palm wind no longer roared, but the swirling snow around continued, providing him a chance to escape amidst the chaos. He was the most handsome and promising Heavenly King within the divine sect. How could he possibly die? Gua Heavenly King put all his efforts into taking a step, ending up suddenly rigid on the spot. Not because that step had exhausted his strength, but something had hit his head. A boot fell from the sky, piercing through the back of his head. Ordinary boots couldn't possibly pierce a person's head, let alone Gua Heavenly King's, but coincidentally, this boot belonged to one of his subordinates, containing a mechanism inside. Once triggered, it would eject a dagger, and it was this dagger that pierced through his head. At this moment, the last breath Gua Heavenly King had been holding on to shattered completely. He only managed to say, "So unlucky," before collapsing with a thud, with a boot on his head. When Duan Yun found him, he saw Gua Heavenly King exerting all his effort to comb his hair into a parting style. Once his hair looked as usual, he uttered, "Eh," and breathed his last. The arrogant Gua Heavenly King of the White Sock Divine Sect, rumored to have the most potential to one day become the head of the 4 Heavenly Kings, died just like that. He died with his hairstyle intact, except for wearing a boot-like hat. Seeing the Heavenly King's corpse, little Een couldn't help but shudder. After witnessing the recent battle, she wondered if even the arrival of her second sister would be of any use. Indeed, this old demon was truly terrifying. She believed that even at her peak, along with her second and even third sister, she would be no match for this Heavenly King of the White Sock Divine Sect. Yet this king was dead just like that. Wouldn't her arrival be useless too? No, it wouldn't just be useless, she would, like her, be captured by old demon and used as a steed. Thinking about being used as a steed by the enemy who killed their mother made little Yin's scalp tingle. Previously, she had always anticipated her sister's arrival to turn the tables together. But at this moment, her thought had changed. She just hoped her sister wouldn't come, or rather, not one by one. At least they needed all 4 sisters together to stand a chance against this old demon. While little Een was shocked and afraid, the scene before her frightened her even more. She saw Duan Yun placing his hand on Gua Heavenly King's head, a terrifying force in his palm absorbing furiously. "Wake up, you bastard. I haven't even asked you questions yet. Don't die on me. Why the hell are you so unlucky? Dying so fast?" Yes, he still wanted to ask about the whereabouts of Su Lizzie. This Heavenly King should be the highest leader in the White Sox sect here, the easiest to question. Duan Yun actually held back with his last palm, ensuring the guy hadn't died instantly, assuming his control was precise. Who knew this guy got killed by a boot? Duan Yun exerted all his strength to absorb, finding he could no longer capture any true chi, only absorbing the death energy from this fresh corpse. Even though he was a gynecologist with a compassionate heart, he struggled to revive him. "I want to be a hero." The dead Gua Heavenly King suddenly opened his mouth and shouted with fanaticism. This sound startled little Een so much that she almost wet herself. Did he make a dead man speak? Old demon Duan could even do that to a corpse? She always thought his methods were cruel enough, but compared to this, dealing with her was light-handed. After saying this, Gua Heavenly King's head cracked open, tilted, and showed no more reactions. This corpse was entirely useless now. Duan Yun threw it on the ground as if tossing a broken sack, suddenly looking towards little Een. Little Een was so frightened that she instinctively knelt down, hurriedly tying her messed-up hair back into pigtails, appearing very obedient. "What do you want?" little Een asked nervously. At this point, Duan Yun had already mounted on her back, saying, "Continue! Continue! Of course continue. A certain bird Heavenly King is dead, but the impure Jade Sword sect remains. This young hero still needs to continue clearing them out." With that, Duan Yun rode on little Een, pointing his sword finger forward. Yes, this young hero still needed to charge forward. "Na na na." Duan Yun couldn't help but recall the demonic sound Gua Heavenly King made before dying, suddenly finding the na 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 sound quite energetic. Hua Wen and Hua Wu remained resting in the warm little house, while Hua Wu's lovely child had long since vanished, off to who knows where to wreak havoc. This child was a demonic star from birth, leaving cruelty wherever he went. The reason the Sword Sect sisters could maintain their position was largely due to this demonic star. This little demonic star, inheriting the talent of the peacock demon, had barely been born before he began practicing old demon Duan's demon technique, a horrifying blend of cruelty and terror. Several previous attempts to usurp their position ended in a matter of days with dismembered corpses scattered everywhere, all thanks to this little demonic star. Because she was small and fast, ambushing people was her specialty. The joint massacre with the White Sox sect achieved notable results. Now, that lineage of the Jade Sword sect was left with only a breath remaining, and it wouldn't be long before it was completely extinguished. By then, they would be the only legitimate Jade Sword sect, and the Jade Girls would bring the martial world endless pain instead of taking the crooked path of upholding justice. Yes, the ways of old Demon Duan were all evil paths. Nobody understood heroes more than the Lingshui twin heroes. Old Demon Duan thought that donning the robe of a hero would make him truly heroic, which was laughable. Thinking back to experiences as a man where Hua Wen had to plant, consume, and sell medicine, he still felt a faint sadness. Though now, regardless of the depth of their skills or the amount of influence they had in the martial world, they had surpassed the past, yet they had also lost much. For instance, they lost their gender, lost their chastity, and Hua Wu was still half crazy. Even though the peacock demon was dead, she often dreamt of the torture she endured from him. Especially after his death, she found herself unable to resist feeling sad. After all, he was her first man. Although she didn't become pregnant with his child like her sister, he'd left an indelible mark on her heart. As much as she hated to admit it, Hua Wen had to acknowledge that, though the peacock demon had forced her, she still considered him her man. So now, like her sister, she became a widow without offspring. Blame old Demon Duan. Everything she suffered, all her mental and physical pain, was thanks to old Demon Duan. If not for him, the sisters would still be carelessly planting and consuming medicine, and even if unforeseen events like being forced by the peacock demon happened, they wouldn't become widows. Blame old Demon Duan indeed. This was also why the sisters sought to annihilate that lineage of the Jade Sword sect. They couldn't bear old Demon Duan thriving. They opposed anything that supported him. They wanted the martial world to feel the Jade Girl's pain, with all its anguish to be accounted for by old Demon Duan. Heaven was blind for not taking the life of this utterly evil demon, so they must be the eye for the martial world. Thinking this, Hua Wen felt a burning sense of passion within her. This was the feeling of vengeance indeed. In her fervor, she couldn't help but ask, why is there no news yet? The pathetic Jade Sword sect had only a flicker remaining, but an avalanche had delayed their total demise, causing her some agitation. Like a dying mouse still wanting to jump. Hua Wen's agitation lay in annihilating the heroic spirit Jade Maiden Sword sect entirely and guarding against the White Sock Divine sect. Currently, they were allies, but one could never be too sure what might go wrong in this martial world full of sly operators. Just then, a sudden flurry of hurried footsteps came from outside. Report, report, they're attacking. A disciple burst through the door, his face tense and anxious. Hua Wen sternly reprimanded, "What's the panic? Who is attacking?" Sister Hua Wu, while tidying her dress, commanded with a sinister aura. "Exactly, with us here. What is there to panic about?" A man riding a young girl, attacked. Upon hearing these words, both Hua Wen and Hua Wu froze. The image was difficult to envision. When she thought about it being a man, Hua Wen's heart tightened as she secretly thought, a man attacking? Could it be that the White Sox sect is starting to betray us? Logically, the heroic spirit Jade Maiden Sword sect hadn't been completely massacred yet, and it wasn't yet time for betrayal from either side. Thus, she couldn't help but ask, did they declare themselves, or did they attack right away? That man claims to be young hero Bu Jingyun, saying he's here to clean the house. The moment the 5 characters young hero Bu Jingyun appeared, especially the two characters for young hero. Both Hua Wen and Hua Wu held their breath. Damnable young hero Bu Jingyun. The name itself screams of old demon Duan. Hua Wen felt her temples throbbing, and even her legs felt somewhat weak. That old demon eventually came looking for us, Hua Wen expressed with a fearful expression. But she quickly regained her composure, saying, "Sister, quickly take Sparrow with you and flee. We know how much old demon Duan loves killing entire families, and the child is innocent. I'll fend him off first." Yes, such a small child who'd only ruthlessly killed a few hundred people. But old demon Duan, being so ruthless, wouldn't spare her if she was caught. "Sister!" Hua Wu cried out, tears streaming. Just as Hua Wen was about to reach for her sister's hand, the next instant, the latter flipped upside down, like a groundhog fleeing underground through the snow. Hua Wu stared blankly at the burrow by the side of the couch. "Wait, I just said it and you really fled, huh?" Just as Hua Wen contemplated whether she should follow through the burrow, several explosive sounds thundered outside. 3 or 4 disciples crashed through the windows and doors like cannonballs, with 2 getting their heads stuck between their legs, looking like some soccer game. Glancing through the human-shaped hole in the wall, Hua Wen's legs weakened and nearly buckled to the ground. There was Duan Yun, wielding a gleaming golden long sword, riding atop an exceptionally beautiful woman, charging forth ruthlessly. Only old demon Duan approached, and the jade girls who had formed an array shattered into pieces, screaming and falling to the ground. Duan Yun grabbed little Yin's tail with one hand, charging faster and faster. It could only be said that the horse was getting better the more it was ridden, and so was the person. At this moment, he felt like a great general charging on the battlefield, riding the red rabbit horse, bringing unparalleled destruction with ease. Damn! This felt awesome. He thought that if he kept practicing, achieving man and horse unity was only a matter of time. Seeing the retreating disciples looking at her as the sect master, Hua Wen gritted her teeth and screamed, "Sisters, form the array to meet the enemy." The jade girls pinched their jade sword fingers and charged forward in unison. As they charged, their fingers shot out jade sword finger sword energy, a dazzling white light. But this level of jade sword finger was nothing in Duan Yun's eyes. How could fireflies compete with the bright moon? He spread his hands and caught the incoming jade sword finger sword energy, then threw it backhanded. Nobody understood the jade sword finger better than him. Puff, puff, puff. Blood flowers splattered, staining the white snow as the charging jade girls fell. At this moment, Duan Yun had already locked onto that person. The woman in the lake blue long dress. She was obviously the leader here. So he pulled little Yin's tail, and little Yin instantly understood his intent, accelerating crazily forward. First, wipe out the White Sox sect, then annihilate this bunch of scum. Today, young hero Bu Jingyun would paint the snow mountain red. Just as Duan Yun charged forward with high spirits, the leading woman suddenly knelt on the ground with a thump, shouting, "Spare me, young hero!" "No!" Seeing the opposing leader surrender directly, Duan Yun couldn't help but pause, tugging little Yin's tail to slow down. Not only was Duan Yun confused, but even those jade girls, lying in pools of blood, looked helpless. "If you were going to surrender, you should have said so early on, so why let us charge for nothing? Are our lives not lives, is that it?" Although the other side surrendered, Duan Yun still felt a bit unsatisfied. He originally thought the opponent would be able to fight like Gua Heavenly King, to have a battle with him. After all, the battle with Gua Heavenly King had him warmed up, ready to excel. Yes, the battle with Gua Heavenly King was actually just a warm-up, to the extent of a slight sweat. However, that was Duan Yun's first encounter with that kind of devilish sound, so the mental agony caused by it was quite real. It was like beating up a brat, yet the brat screaming halfway was still torturing. What's more, Gua Heavenly King's screeching was his special trump card. Duan Yun originally planned to practice against this leader, to replicate the Heavenly King's trick and throw a bit of na 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 at the opponent to see if he could drive them crazy. But the opponent surrendered without a fight. Surrendered but still had to suffer, just as Duan Yun was employing extraordinary wisdom to see if he could replicate nah. Love never ends. For some mental strike, the lake blue skirt woman cried, "Young hero Duan, long time no see." Duan Yun raised an eyebrow slightly. By this time, he had ridden little Een to stand before Hua Wen, like a victorious general inspecting his captives on horseback. The more he looked at this person, the more familiar she seemed. "You are." "I'm Hua Wu, young hero." Upon hearing this name, Duan Yun leapt off little Een. He looked at that square face for a moment, his emotions mixed. Hua Wen and Hua Wu, the Lingshui twin heroes, he always remembered them. For a long time, he considered them friends, believing they were among the few heroes in the martial world. Yes, drinking with them was his first experience of the boldness of drinking and eating with friends in the martial world. That was one of his few beautiful memories of the martial world. And when he heard rumors of them being fallen, he was very angry. But it now seemed to be true. Being fallen was true, and these two brothers not being true heroes was also true. Hua Wen had no choice but to see if old affection could sway old demon, to thereby save his life. Duan Yun frowned and said, "So it seems, this Jade Sword sect is your brother's mess. Then, where's your brother?" Hua Wen said nervously, My brother is not here. Young hero, this wasn't created by us brothers. We're just figureheads in this sword sect." Saying this, Hua Wen began to explain. His explanation was that once the Jade Sword true understanding was spread out, responses poured in like clouds, and the Jade Sword sect suddenly emerged and formed a scale beyond their control. Duan Yun could understand that, although these two brothers had mistakenly practiced his Jade Sword true understanding, it counted as a divine skill, and surely many people practiced it. Once the number of practitioners expands too quickly, combined with a mix of good and evil, it is indeed difficult to control. Duan Yun said, "I want to ask you something." "Please, young hero, say it," Hua Wen said respectfully. "We are acquaintances. Let's just call me Duan Yun." Duan Yun said. Upon hearing this, Hua Wen was inwardly delighted. This is salvation. Earlier, a goddess catcher came into the mountains with some people. "Did you see her?" Duan Yun asked. Hua Wen instinctively wanted to lie, but thinking it was old demon Duan, didn't dare, and quickly said, "Earlier indeed a goddess catcher from the Qingqi Bureau met us, but we didn't dare go all out." "Oh, martial world rumors say the goddess catchers from Qingqi Bureau are your star fury. So we truly didn't dare go all out. And that goddess catcher had many hidden weapons on her, escaping through a mountain crevice using smoke and mist." Hua Wen said honestly. Hearing this answer, although Duan Yun felt stifled by the misinformation, he felt a bit relieved. The sea cup escaped, nothing happened. She hadn't returned, maybe blocked by cold miasma? At this point, Duan Yun looked again at Hua Wen and said, "You said the Jade Sword sect is beyond your control. Have you done any evil over these years?" Hua Wen instantly tensed up and said, "No, none." Duan Yun scrutinized her and said, "No need to explain. I'll check myself." "Check yourself." Beiming divine skill. Before Hua Wen could react, Duan Yun extended his hand, and she felt herself uncontrollably drawn towards him, the lake blue skirt leaving a groove on the ground. Ah! Under Duan Yun's palm, Hua Wen's head suddenly blurred. Suddenly, he shivered uncontrollably. Snowflakes on the ground scattered. "I want to be a hero." Just as Hua Wen suddenly shouted tremblingly, Duan Yun had already reviewed part of his memory. The next moment, Hua Wen's face turned white with fear. Because Duan Yun was looking at him, with a face full of anguish, he said, "I've always treated you as a friend, called you a hero. Why did you lie to me?" Duan Yun, detest being lied to." Saying this, he threw Hua Wen up with one hand and kicked out with one foot. With a bang, the kick landed right on Hua Wen's abdomen, powerfully, sending him flying like a soccer ball, straight into the sky. He only checked a short segment of memories and found these brothers, now sisters, led the Jade Sword sect leading to many disasters. killing people, killing without cause, using various cruel tortures to kill, especially towards the righteous faction of the Jade Sword sect, with cruel methods to annihilate them. Suddenly, the scene of the two brothers drinking and laughing with him blurred. He clearly remembered it very clearly before. Damn! As Hua Wen's body fell, Duan Yun kicked out again. This kick was fiercer and stronger than before. Hua Wen's body shot up like a rocket, abdomen sunken, the overflowing force shattering the chest bones. Another 2 kicks followed. Hua Wen flew in the air, unable to land. His flesh shattered, vomiting blood wildly, appearing as a blooming firework in the eyes of the living. Kicked high enough, visible from far away. At this moment, Hua Wu had found her daughter. Mother and daughter hugged each other. The demon infant emitted bird-like calls, hoarsely, "Big Mother!" Hua Wu held her tightly, eyes full of malice, saying, "Child, remember, old demon Duan killed your big mother. He first killed your father, then your big mother, beyond description, extremely vicious. We, such good people, bullied by such a demon from birth. Child, you must practice the cultivation technique well and avenge Big Mother." The demon infant looked at her big mother flying in the air, her eyes filled with violent rage. "Kill! Kill!" Hua Wu looked at her sister breaking apart in the air, tears streaming, hugging her furious daughter, both flying away upside down. During the upside-down run, Hua Wu further verified one thing. In extreme hatred and sadness, even upside down, the tears fall down. "Old demon Duan, you humiliated and killed the good. May you die a horrible death." Hua Wen was thus struck by Duan Yun, turning into human fireworks. One of the Jade girls lay in the snow, witnessing this scene, gnashing her teeth and shedding blood tears. Her rage wasn't truly for Hua Wen's downfall, but because it wasn't worth it. She thought it wasn't worth it for herself. She herself was a bloodthirsty storyteller. Or rather, a bloodthirsty storytelling elite. Even the leader of the dice praised her future prospects. For the kindness of the phrase, future prospects, to investigate the secrets of old demon Duan and deal with him, she willingly became a woman, even being used by Gua Heavenly King to practice martial arts, to mix into this position within the Jade Sword sect. During this joint attack with Divine Socks sect against the heroic spirit Jade Maiden Sword sect, she was heavily involved, especially when receiving favor from Gua Heavenly King. She incited many times. She sacrificed her gender and chastity, just wanting to destroy everything supporting old demon Duan. Originally, this task was quite well done. That sect of Jade Sword sect was languishing, but then that damned old demon Duan suddenly appeared, ruining all plans. The crux is, whether it's this branch of the Jade Sword sect she's in or the White Sock Divine sect led by Gua Heavenly King, they're both too fragile. Within a day, they were all taken down by old demon on a little demon girl. How come the martial world heroes fighting old demon Duan are getting worse with each generation? Back then, even though Huangshan Sword sect was defeated, all men were slaughtered, female heroes were beaten to kneel and wet the gold sword. It was still a fierce battle. They say the stench of urine from Gathering Talent Manor hasn't dissipated until now. But this time, especially this Jade Sword sect, though claiming to bring pain to the martial world, ended without even decent resistance. She hates it. She hates herself for losing her gender and chastity, still unable to bring much trouble to old demon Duan. How can old demon Duan perish at this rate? When will the martial world return to peace? At this moment, old demon Duan's massacre is like an extremely glaring nail, causing her to shed Jade Maiden tears. After today, old demon Duan's crimes have increased. She must disseminate this demon's wicked deeds, urge the world's heroes to eliminate him. She believes light will ultimately triumph over darkness. Maintaining peace in the martial world is a bloodthirsty storyteller's duty. When Hua Wen fell to the ground, she barely had half a breath left. Using all her strength, she grabbed Duan Yun's ankle, spitting blood and said, "Old demon Duan, you made us sisters turn to womanhood and killed my man. When I die, I will become a vengeful ghost and never let go of your teeth." After saying that, she turned her head and died. Her lake blue dress was already soaked with blood, truly looking like the appearance of a vengeful ghost turning into red clothes. But young hero Duan's heroic spirit fills heaven and earth, regardless of these. Even transformed into vengeful ghosts, in young hero Duan's view, they are evil demons, which need to be seized and killed. Hua Wen was dead, but Hua Wu was still alive. When Duan Yun was reading memories, he had already captured traces of Hua Wu. The same square face, the same jade maiden. Apart from Hua Wen, who else but Hua Wu? Young hero Duan despises being deceived, and Hua Wen had been deceiving him till the end. Just you wait. I'll send your sister to reunite with you. Why do you force me? Duan Yun usually has a good temper and wouldn't kill whole families unless absolutely necessary. At this time, he and Little Een had entered the initially luxurious, now drafty house. With a wave of Duan Yun's hand, beneath the animal fur of the soft couch was a dark snow tunnel. Hua Wu likely escaped through here, wretched, leaving brother behind. No kinship or loyalty. Just for this deserves to be beaten to death. Saying so, Duan Yun grabbed Little Een and rushed into the tunnel. As long as he's fast enough, evil demons won't escape. This tunnel was newly made, with Duan Yun and Little Een darting inside at great speed. For a moment, Little Een was somewhat dumbfounded, because old demon Duan's sliding was too smooth, even vaguely noble and elegant. And this was while taking her along. Could this be a world-shocking talent? Little Een had no idea that the reason Duan Yun could slide so fast and smoothly was all thanks to a good brother. His brother could slide quickly even on uneven ground, let alone this relatively slippery snow tunnel. Inside the tunnel, only when snow layers were thin, Duan Yun could see the flicker of light above. This experience of traversing the darkness was much like riding a super long slide, which reminded Duan Yun of somewhat childhood happiness. Once Hua Wu is slain, I will relive childhood joy. As Duan Yun thought, he sped up. With a swoosh, this snow tunnel followed a parabola path, suddenly ending ahead. No, not just an end. There were many protruding ice spikes. Bang! 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 Wrapped in breaking body sword energy, Duan Yun dashed straight through. When daylight illuminated their eyes, Duan Yun and Little Een were airborne. Only Hua Wu proved insidious, linking this tunnel with an area of ice spikes. Had young hero's skill not been top-notch, he might have suffered ice jabs. Ordinary people would likely die. Duan Yun landed, shaking off the ice crystals from his body, then turned around and was startled. He was unharmed, but Little Een had many ice spikes stuck, especially her shoulders and back, making her look like a porcupine. Are you all right? Duan Yun asked. Little Een felt she had half a life left, lamenting, not dead yet. When crashing into the ice spikes, she didn't fail to apply force to resist. According to reason, the way ahead had been cleared by Duan Yun, so the ice spikes she faced from behind should be shorter and fewer. Whether it was due to lack of skill or sheer bad luck, these ice spikes were incredibly hard, all piercing into her body. Upon hearing that she wouldn't die immediately, Duan Yun quickly surveyed the surroundings. Where the hell did they go? This was a cedar forest. The snow layer hadn't fully covered this area, and the ground was densely covered with pine needles. After coming out, Duan Yun temporarily lost track of Hua Wu. Since entering the snow mountain, he had been following the trail to track them here. However, this Hua Wu was evidently very cunning and had premeditated plans. The hole seemed hastily dug, yet it had been planned out long ago. Just the ice spikes behind, if one didn't know better, they might very well be impaled if only focused on sliding. After exiting the cave, the other party left no further traces. Moreover, it started snowing again. Even any small traces would likely soon be covered by snow. Little Een was there gritting her teeth, letting out a soft groan as she pulled out a few ice spikes. Seeing Duan Yun looking around, she couldn't help but tease. You can't find them, can you? Duan Yun raised an eyebrow. Was this Mount gloating over his misfortune? Little Een quickly put away her playful smile and said, I'm really unlucky, you're pretty lucky. Duan Yun said gloomily, I couldn't find anyone, yet you say I'm lucky? Little Een said earnestly, You're lucky because I can find them. That woman has a strange scent. If I hurry, I can track her down. Yes, she could find Duan Yun by relying on this keen sense of smell. Little Een actually didn't know. Her biological father was actually the top divine catcher of the Qingxi Bureau back in the day. Known for his handsome appearance and unparalleled tracking talent, coupled with innate divine power, he was a pillar of the Qingxi Bureau and had long been betrothed to the commandery princess. Unfortunately, that day the Jade Guanyin descended from the sky, abducted and desecrated him, and he never returned. Duan Yun didn't expect this mount to have such a function. Couldn't help but be delighted. Then I really am quite lucky. Little Een pointed to the ice spike on her thigh and said, I know the direction, but I can't serve as a mount for now. Reuniting Hua Wen and Hua Wu was a major task, so Duan Yun didn't bicker with Little Een about her reversal of heavenly gang. After all, he had also carried Little Gray before, and he said, I'll carry you later. Saying this, he scooped Little Een up and tucked her under his arm. Little Een said with a face full of anguish, Can't you change a position? First of all, since I helped you this time, even if I'm a mount, I deserve some better treatment. Recognizing the gravity of this killing matter, Duan Yun hefted her onto his back and said, Is this better? Which way? East. Throughout this journey, Duan Yun had always ridden on Little Een, rarely being carried by old demon Duan. Little Een was so nervous and excited that her heart pounded furiously and her rear tensed up. Mother, I finally reciprocated. It's like finally taking revenge for you. Finding an opportunity to retaliate on the way to being captured by old demon. Little Een, truly am a genius with extraordinary wisdom. And this time again, she witnessed the skill of Duan Yun. For ordinary people, this snowland was an obstacle. After all, even a martial world expert would encounter snow drifts while traversing it. But for Duan Yun, this snow layer was an excellent aid. You could see him gliding swiftly over the snow layer, as if his feet were oiled, carrying him rapidly forward. When encountering broad gaps, this fellow even crossed by stepping his left foot onto his right foot. Does this man have any weakness? This level of light body skills Little Een believed her mother could also achieve, but how many Jade Guanyins are there in this world? The key was, from the start to now, the longer she stayed with old demon Duan, the more she realized how extensively he had learned at such a young age, skilled in sword, saber, fist, and kick. Not just skilled, but highly proficient and oddly unique. From easily breaking her pincer attack, to blending with the blade whirlwind of the Dharma image, and even the absorption technique that made the dead speak, all were overwhelmingly strong. When she first became a mount, she planned to ambush him. But now she had acknowledged that even if she used all her strength to ambush, she would not be a match for this enemy who killed her mother. Not to mention, even her two younger sisters couldn't succeed in ambushing him. Sisters, please don't come one by one. Come two at a time, no, preferably three. When four sisters unite to launch an ambush, there's still a great opportunity. In fact, Little Yin's understanding wasn't entirely wrong. Back then, when Jade Guanyin nurtured them inside the yellow jade with secret technique, she originally viewed them as weapons. Weapons of unbreakable unity. In Jade Guanyin's vision, for daughters joining forces could match her. If 7 acted together, the terror would be more than double. Jade Guanyin had traversed the martial world for many years, proclaiming herself the most beautiful woman in the martial world. People in the martial world feared her horror, outwardly not daring to disagree, but secretly many thought she was not as beautiful as the 2 palace masters of Mingyu Palace. Jade Guanyin was extremely vain and proud of her appearance. There were beauties in the martial world who were said to rival her, but regardless of whether they were imperial kin or sect fairies, they all died tragically. No need to guess, this was all the doing of Jade Guanyin. Yet her whole life, she never provoked the 2 palace masters of Mingyu Palace, because she knew she probably wasn't a match. However, Jade Guanyin never stopped plotting to eliminate these 2 women. The 7 daughters nurtured inside Yellow Jade were her long-held trump card. She believed that in a few more years, once the 7 daughters were born, she would dare to challenge Mingyu Palace. The martial arts myth, anyone who dared to compare beauty with her had to die. Alas, she fell midway. Her carefully nurtured daughters hadn't even been born before she was killed by old demon Duan. Jade Guanyin never anticipated that her ultimate trump card daughter would become old demon Duan's mount. If she knew in the afterlife, she'd likely become a vengeful spirit. Duan Yun carried little Een as he rapidly traversed the snowy cliffs, the surrounding scenery swiftly sweeping by. Hua Wu and her daughter fled quickly. They ran upside down, leaving no trace in the snow. Hua Wu could stabilize her leading position in the Jade Sword sect due to her unique reversed practice of Jade Sword True Understanding. Since the death of Peacock Demon and her subsequent pregnancy, she became eccentric and mad. This eccentricity made her inclined to run whimsically while naked and upside down, because she felt that only when upside down and unclothed could she let go of her inner pain and concentrate on martial arts. This unique experience led her to discover the method of reversing the Jade Sword True Understanding. In short, within the Jade Sword sect, the normal ones couldn't beat the mad ones, and those who practiced properly couldn't beat her reversing method. Because she was already reversing the cultivation technique while pregnant, it made this little girl learn the move in the womb rather uncanny. The mother and daughter, with extraordinary movement technique, had sprinted at least hundreds of miles before stopping. It was getting dark. At this time, the mother and daughter both felt fatigued. Given the mountainous terrain and long distance, old demon Duan surely couldn't find them for a while. The mother and daughter nestled in a narrow mountain crevice, controlled their breathing upside down. The bird-like little girl made huffing sounds, clearly furious. Since birth, she tormented who she wanted, killed who she wanted, never having suffered grievances. But today, seeing her mother being beaten into the sky deeply shocked her young soul, turning her once clear eyes somewhat red. If not for her mother, she'd have charged over, tearing that so-called old demon Duan into pieces. Who would dare call themselves a demon in the face of her, the sparrow demon? She uttered these words not long after learning to speak. Her mother had praised her for her ferocity, and she had always been acting on it. But today she could only hide like a wild dog. Sparrow, mother knows you're angry, but as long as Qingshan remains, no need to fear lacking firewood. Your potential is boundless. Once your divine skill is perfected, old demon Duan will be no more than a clay chicken or pottery dog. Hua Wu comforted her. The little girl grinned, showing her gleaming white teeth, with a sinister expression. Seeing her daughter's daunting face, Hua Wu momentarily felt hopeful for the future. She must raise her daughter well, only then can she revenge fiercely. She wanted old demon Duan to die miserably, his death preceded by endless torture to vent her anger. At this moment, Hua Wu suddenly noticed her daughter looking thoughtfully at the top of the mountain crevice. Hua Wu followed her gaze, and in an instant, her heart seemed to stop. At the dim and narrow top of the mountain crevice, an eye was coldly staring down at them with clear gaze. No, couldn't be? Hua Wu thought that after having run so far with her daughter, even if old demon Duan were vicious, this place would be absolutely safe for at least a short time. But when she realized that her daughter was looking at the top of the mountain crevice with the curious eyes of a child, she followed her gaze, and her heart skipped half a beat. Above that narrow mountain crevice, she saw an eye that should be beautiful, even clear and pure. But such an eye made Hua Wu tremble all over in fear, almost screaming out loud. Yes, she was initially upside down with her legs apart, but at this moment, she was so frightened that they were tightly closed. Because Hua Wu recognized this eye. Back when she was still a man, when she and her big brother were the Lingshui twin heroes, it was these eyes that deceived her. The eyes were beautiful, holding the inherent clarity and innocence of a newcomer to the martial world, which she secretly found foolish. But this was the beginning of her nightmare. She thought she had deceived the other and could cultivate him into a plump piece of great medicine. But she ended up being played with instead. Duan, old demon Duan. In extreme shock, Hua Wu's mind went blank. Upon saying this, she nearly wet herself. Hua Wu, after so long, how come the first thing you say is to slander me? From above, Duan Yun's voice came. Due to the mountain crevice, this voice echoed heavily inside, like a demonic sound. Hua Wu's daughter. Xiao Ke suddenly opened her mouth, revealing her gleaming white teeth, and sneered evilly, Duan, old demon Duan. After realizing it was old demon Duan, instead of fearing, she became excited. Because her famous saying was, in front of her, the sparrow demon who dares to claim the title of demon. Not even old demon Duan can. Mother insisted she not tear apart this old demon Duan. But that was because she didn't know her prowess. A newborn calf is not afraid of a tiger, but Hua Wu was terrified. She hadn't expected, after fleeing so far, that the other party would still pursue them. Old demon Duan truly had crimes beyond measure. Killing her beloved sister wasn't enough. And now he wanted to thoroughly wipe out their innocent mother-daughter pair? Old demon Duan, you are heartless. So, she spread her legs wide, facing Duan Yun with her crotch, and said, look closely. The once hero Hua Wu became like this because of practicing your evil skill. What right do you have to pursue me? Hua Wu cried. Nonsense. I hate nothing more than people lying to me and slandering me. You, having committed both sins, deserve death. Duan Yun's voice descended like thunder, frightening all who heard. Suddenly, amidst this thunderous voice, came, na 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 na, love never ends. Hearing this sentence, Hua Wu's expression changed drastically, thinking to herself, what on earth, old demon Duan still claims he's not mad? This sound echoed within the mountain crevice, carrying a demonic quality, causing Hua Wu to suddenly recall her deceased husband, Peacock. She remembered the days of being tormented while pregnant with his child, and suddenly she was crying with hot tears. She longed to continue being tormented. That kind of torturous love was never ending. But alas, Peacock was dead, leaving her and her daughter alone. How was she supposed to live? How to live in a world without love? Wah! A sound rang, resembling the cry of a large bird. Children don't understand love, so tears didn't fall from her eyes. Her cries abruptly woke Hua Wu up. Seeing this, Hua Wu urgently exclaimed, run! The demon child Xiao Ke was initially eager to try her hand, but seeing her mother's state, she instinctively felt fear and stood on her head, drilling deeper into the mountain crevice. Where do you think you're going? Little Een, stop her! As Duan Yun finished speaking, a shadow had already fallen from the top of the mountain crevice, pursuing the demon child Xiao Ke. In the moment of pursuit, little Een herself felt how absurd it was. Why am I obedient like a dog? During the chase, she couldn't help but hesitate. Logically, if old demon Duan wants something, she should do the opposite. For instance, let this little thing go free, wouldn't old demon Duan jump with rage? But if old demon Duan gets angry, little Een had no hesitation left and chased with all her might. For if old demon Duan grew angry and blamed her, she couldn't imagine the torture she would endure. Though sometimes she wished old demon Duan would hit hard, just as flogging a donkey. The more intense the beating, she would feel an odd sense of pleasure. But the premise is that she needs to live. To live so that she could wait for her sister to join forces. Throughout this journey, she had long seen the petty and ruthless means of old demon Duan. Yes, in front of such a person, her stunning looks and charm were irrelevant and might very well lead to her death. So, little Een widened her beautiful eyes, yelling, little brat, stop for your mother. At this mortal moment, Hua Wu exhibited her great maternal love. To give her daughter more time, she actually spread her legs and instead of fleeing, rushed towards where Duan Yun was located. Old demon Duan, come face your death. Hua Wu had not considered killing old demon Duan. To be accurate, she had thought about it countless times. It's fair to say, old demon Duan was miserably beaten in her mind, countless times. But when this day came, what she felt aside from instinctive fear was madness. Becoming like this, having had her monthly period 15 times in a month after giving birth, suffering pain that had her rolling on the ground when breastfeeding, all of this was thanks to this old demon Duan. Old demon Duan, taste my reverse-trained jade sword true understanding tooth. As Hua Wu lunged while standing on her head, all the jade sword true chi within her was circulating. except in reverse. So the jade sword finger sword energy that should shoot from her fingers instead all emerged from her crotch. She once endured unbearable pain during her monthly affairs, drinking brown sugar water and smoking Red Tower Mountain cigarettes to no avail, and gradually found a path through reverse training. That path was to expel the abdominal pain along with the sword chi from her crotch. In this way, not only was the force of the sword chi more fierce, but its trajectory was also more peculiar. Within the Jade Sword sect, some had exceptional talent, eventually able to continuously discharge Jade Sword finger sword chi with all 10 fingers, but still couldn't compare to her teeth. Others may discharge in succession, still one finger at a time, while she was a wild discharge from the entire crotch. In an instant, over a dozen streams of Jade Sword finger sword chi surged forth, some strong, some weak, some fierce straight lines piercing the void, and others bizarre arcs of sword chi. The sword chi easily pierced through the stone wall, heading towards Duan Yun. Duan Yun watched and couldn't help but remark, "Hua Wu, I didn't expect you to be a talent." He was all too familiar with Jade Sword finger sword chi, yet Hua Wu's crotch shot sword could alter the trajectory of Jade Sword finger sword chi. An innovation indeed. This time he didn't seize and rebound the sword chi as he did when he eradicated the Jade Sword sect, not because Hua Wu's Jade Sword finger sword chi was harder to deal with, but because he found it disgusting. Because those sword chi contained Hua Wu's hair. Cloud clearing palm. Duan Yun from above suddenly unleashed the palm technique. Just like when he killed the Yushi 2 sect masters at the Red Tower Mountain's base. Duan Yun's cloud clearing palm was casually executed, yet stirred a tempest. The palm strike, accompanied by a thick layer of snow, descended as if the clouds were truly surging, bombarded down. Hua Wu's proudest move, crotch shot sword, was instantly shattered by the palm force. She felt a chill in the crotch, trying to clamp her legs was too late. The terrifying palm force penetrated her body with the cloud-clearing momentum. With a crash, Hua Wu smashed into the mountain wall, spitting blood mixed with snow. Bright red blood, pure white snow, looked extremely shocking. If one must sum up old demon Duan's palm, it was simply immense brick-breaking strength. The opponent descending from above, bombarding her mid-air, she was too late to evade. Even though a lot of snow had filled her body, Hua Wu was able to hold the Jade Maiden family's position through her capabilities. Her inverted body twisted, once more reverse training Jade Sword true understanding. While being tormented continuously by Peacock Demon, Hua Wu had experienced an illusion. She felt like she was a jar, or perhaps a vessel that needed to accommodate everything. This greatly inspired her reverse training. So at this moment, the palm force and accumulated snow flowing within Hua Wu had been completely embraced, following the reverse training. Release! Hua Wu's legs spread again, already bringing forth a chain of sharp sounds piercing through the air. Flying out from her crotch was an expanse of snow arrows. The momentum was even more astonishing than the previous crotch-shot sword. Before the snow arrows arrived, the air ahead was already infused with a chill. Duan Yun even felt a palpable despair and sorrow. Why were these arrows so sorrowful? Hua Wu seemed to understand his thoughts, laughing madly in her inverted stance. Because this is my hatred towards you. Heartbreak arrow. Kill. Hua Wu's legs spread and converged, continuing to shoot snow arrows. This time, less snow, more blood, it could be called blood arrows. Heartbreak arrow was Hua Wu's hidden ultimate maneuver. Every time she practiced, she held deep hatred towards the martial world, towards old demon Duan, truly resenting heaven and earth, her resentment overflowing. Who could have imagined, under such emotions, she mastered this supreme art. Wherever Heartbreak arrow passed, even without lethal injury, its sorrowful despair could make one desire death from sadness, shedding blood tears. If those struck didn't promptly gather their chi to counteract, they'd be completely swallowed by the sorrowful, despairing emotion, committing suicide straight away. Several traitors within the sect who tried to usurp power died this way. But this Heartbreak arrow drained Hua Wu's vital energy. Executing it would backfire, causing her period pain to be agony beyond measure, even shedding blood tears. Several times, Had it not been for her sister and daughter discovering her in time, she might have already committed blood-tear suicide. So she never executed this move unless absolutely necessary. But now she had nothing left to hold back. Because the opponent was her long-pondered enemy for her husband's murder, the demon who brought her endless suffering, and to buy time for her daughter's escape, Hua Wu exerted her utmost, eager to send all her hatred along with blood to Duan Yun, that demon who deserved thousands of cuts. Faced with such a move, Duan Yun didn't dare underestimating. His muscles bulged. The 16 strange fists pushed to the extreme. 15 fist techniques linked together, enveloped with pure true chi and boundless heroic spirit, formed an exceedingly ferocious punch. Extreme hatred. Boom, boom, boom. The air sank, huge fist shadows advancing layer after layer, colliding with heartbreak arrows. The two forces instantly dissolved each other, splattering wildly. A nearby monkey struck by the external force instantly had red eyes, shedding blood tears, its face filled with ultimate despair and sadness, suddenly opening its mouth, shouting, "Monkey, monkey, roar! Must become hero." Its pronunciation was very inaccurate, but still one could vaguely hear the "I want to be a hero" phrase. As soon as the words fell, the monkey raised its left hand in monkey fist, boldly pounding its chest, appearing as if wanting to be a hero. Yet its right hand picked up an ice spike, stabbing at its heart, as if to tragically commit suicide. If you looked closely at its face, you'd find one half filled with fervent boldness, somewhat resembling a martial world hero, while the other face streamed with blood tears, deeply sorrowful. That's because there were just two forces clashing within, like ice and fire in fierce opposition. It didn't last long, and in the next moment, the monkey's blood tears vanished, leaving only a heroic face saying, "I want to be a hero." This represented the clash of two chi forces, yet it was old demon Duan's boundless heroic chi that prevailed. The monkey's internal chi force duel was decided, and similarly so was the other side. Hua Wu's body was blasted away by fist power, the domineering force tearing and twisting her meridians, making both forward and reverse cultivation impossible. With a thud, Hua Wu fell to the ground, unable to rise again. As she hit the ground, her first instinct wasn't to look at Duan Yun, but at the direction her daughter had fled. Just then, Duan Yun's voice rang out, "Relax, she won't escape." Upon hearing this, Hua Wu's eyes were filled with rage and despair. From the depths of the mountain crevice, sounds of fierce fighting echoed. Dust and debris flew chaotically, obscuring the truth. Duan Yun estimated it wouldn't be long before Little Een completed her task. For, judging by physique alone, Little Een was a maiden while the other could only be called a child, the kind you could find brawling in a kindergarten. Then, unexpectedly, Little Yin's voice rang out, "Catch! Relay tooth!" Ha! Duan Yun maneuvered through the smoke and suddenly saw the two women locked in a struggle. The tall and long-legged Little Een was surprisingly at a disadvantage. Duan Yun had always thought Little Een was fast and powerful enough that even top-notch experts from ordinary sex were no match. But unexpectedly, this bird-like girl was even faster. Moreover, she seemed not human, displaying an untamed wildness in her hunt. Within Jade Sword Finger Sword energy, she was clawing and shaking, leaping up and down with extreme fierceness. Duan Yun even glimpsed an extraordinary fist technique among them. At this moment, Little Een had already been struck in the knee by a punch, retreating while clutching her leg. In truth, Little Een was also bitter inside. She appeared as a maiden, yet soon after emerging from the water, her second opponent was old demon Duan, and she was captured, unlike the demon child who had slaughtered countless people, becoming more ruthless with murder. Also, she was quite unfortunate. The cultivation technique that usually ran smoothly was suddenly disrupted several times, forcing her to constantly readjust, quickly losing the initiative and becoming the one beaten. Seeing this, Xiao Kei's eyes grew darker with demonic energy, threatening to lift Little Yin's scalp. She often did this, as she loved seeing people's exposed skulls, because that particular look of screaming was no different from monkeys being scalped. However, just then, someone shouted, "I hit!" and a shadow swiftly swept in. Xiao Ke hurriedly twisted her body to block, but her airborne form was still struck, landing on the ground like a cannonball, in incredible pain. Duan, old demon. Xiao Ke's eyes dark like ink, rebounded upon landing and unleashed a chain of fist techniques. This fist technique was both gentle and rigid, containing endless momentum, reminiscent of Taoist fist styles. Duan Yun then engaged her with his foot. Their moves were incredibly fast, growing swifter by the moment. In a brief interval, Duan Yun's feet were like swords, while the girl's fists were like bullets, clashing for 30 moves. After 30 moves, the girl was covered in at least 27 footprints. She stood there, teetering on the brink of collapse. If her small body was an advantage facing little Een, allowing agile ambush and attack, taking out knees, then against Duan Yun it was all disadvantages. His long legs were simply longer than hers, and she could only take the beating. Looking at the demon child, Duan Yun said seriously, "So young and already so cruel. Let me see who taught you such rotten ways." With that, his figure blurred and he appeared behind the girl, pressing down her head. Beaming divine skill. The moment true chi entered his palm, Duan Yun felt an incredibly violent aura. This aura was like a pool of black ink, with ghosts gnashing within, restless. In the martial world, there's debate over in the beginning, humans are inherently good versus in the beginning, humans are inherently evil, yet supporters of the former are clearly more numerous. Duan Yun tended to agree with the former. Yet this moment revealed the latter. This little thing should be under 3 years old. But tell me that this viciousness is a 3-year-old's? Suddenly, Xiao Ke shouted, "My life is mine, not heaven's. Live or die, it's up to me." Duan Yun raised a brow and asked, "Why the sudden enthusiasm?" Just as the words left his mouth, Xiao Ke's whole body began to inflate. Duan Yun only felt the opponent's true chi rampaging inside, and couldn't help but toss her aside. In the moment of tossing, there was a bang as Xiao Ke's body exploded directly. Duan Yun used breaking body sword energy to block the explosion and realized that during the detonation, some fingers had flown out from the broken belly of the opponent. This thing actually ate people. But this cannibalistic thing eventually died, turned into chunks. When Duan Yun looked around, he saw Hua Wu crawling over. Seeing the scene, her eyes filled with blood tears, and she died with a vicious glare. She died in a way that seemed to curse Duan Yun for a miserable end. Seeing this, Duan Yun glanced at the sky, skillfully took out a small booklet, scribbled a few notes, and couldn't help but sigh. At least you sisters are united before night fell. Afterward, he began to examine the body of the furious Hua Wu. But then a manual dropped out. This manual turned out to be in the form of a jade scroll. Upon seeing it, Duan Yun discovered the outer words were Jade Sword True Understanding. He casually read a few lines and questioned, "How is this Jade Sword True Understanding different from mine?" The jade scroll of Jade Sword True Understanding slowly unfolded in Duan Yun's hands, and the first sentence that came into view was, "The world and all living things. Man is the great medicine." Man is the great medicine? What kind of demonic text is this? Hearing this, young hero Duan only felt it was sinister. Then, disdainfully stuffed it into his pocket, because a child was watching him. Yes, little Een was looking at him with clear eyes. Such gruesome things as corpse searching and wicked scriptures are not for children to see. Duan Yun decided to read it later when he was riding her. By this time, it was almost dark, and it was even gloomier in the mountain crevice, with snowflakes drifting down from above, adding to the desolation. Finally, catching up before dark to reunite Hua Wan and Hua Wu with their family, Duan Yun felt a sense of ease and joy. This ease and joy were perhaps like the proverbial cigarette after, quite satisfying. He was just a bit puzzled by Hua Wan and Hua Wu's hatred towards him, especially Hua Wu, who even accused him of killing her man. Who was her man? Probably some unknown evil demon whom he incidentally killed once, I suppose. Yes, when Duan Yun delved into Hua Wen's memories, due to the distant time, He didn't uncover the story of the entanglement between Hua Wu and Peacock Demon. In the darkness, there was initially no fire, but as Duan Yun raised his hand, a fire ignited. With a flick of his hand, the flame landed, igniting the broken bodies of Hua Wu and Xiao Ke. Little Yin watched with trembling fear. Is this the consequence of offending old Demon Duan? Old Demon Duan mastered fire to such an extent, if he knew a bit of alchemy technique. At this moment, an image appeared in Little Yin's mind of their 7 sisters being captured by old Demon Duan and using demon fire for alchemy, a thought that sent chills down her spine. At this point, Duan Yun spoke. The matter is almost done. Come up. Come up? Up where? Little Yin was a bit baffled, thinking to herself, could it be that old Demon Duan, after killing people, is now in a wild beast mode, wanting her to voluntarily go to him for humiliation and torture? Duan Yun said, didn't you say you can't walk anymore? Of course, it's to hop on my back. If you keep dawdling, it will be dark soon, and I haven't had dinner yet. Little Yin understood and obediently said, I can manage. You can ride me instead. Duan Yun did not expect this mount to be so considerate, so he said, since you are so proactive, well then, let me heal your wounds first. Just like feeding some grass to a horse before letting it gallop. Duan Yun understood this principle. The scorching heroic spirit, accompanied by demon electricity, surged into Little Yin's body, coursing through her injured body. Little Yin couldn't help but let out a muffled groan, her toes curling as she felt the lotus mark on her soles growing hot. This feeling was warm and comfortable, yet tremendously humiliating. This was mainly due to her and old Demon Duan's identities. Old Demon Duan was her mother's murderer, yet here she was, receiving healing from her mother's murderer. Crackling sounds. The disruptive meridians inside Little Yin were realigned by the demon electricity, gradually returning to normal. Even the ice spikes that had pierced into her body were melted and shattered by the scorching true chi of the young hero. After Dr. Duan applied his medical practitioner's compassionate heart, Little Yin recovered most of her strength, and with a peculiar feeling, carried the seat on her back, half kneeling and waiting for Duan Yun to sit. Duan Yun, with a knife in his left hand and a sword in his right, rode Little Yin, charging and slashing, cutting through the snow forest from this end to the other, from the White Sox sect to the evil Jade Maiden Sword sect, without blinking an eye. This commotion was naturally immense, surpassing even 2 avalanches. The people of the heroic spirit Jade Maiden Sword sect soon noticed the signs. Upon hearing that a man was riding a beauty to charge and slaughter their enemies, these jade girls crawled out of the snow layers, chasing to witness the spectacle. It wasn't difficult to spot the scene, because wherever young hero Duan passed, blood was everywhere. The blood against the white snow was especially conspicuous. Even though these jade girls were battle-hardened survivors, having faced formidable figures like Gua Heavenly King of the White Sox Divine Sect, they had never encountered such a terrifying individual. They had been besieged by another branch of the Jade Maiden Sword sect and the White Sox Divine Sect, aware of their ferocity. But in this man's hands, they were no more than chickens and dogs. Where was this invincible god of slaughter from? Among these jade girls were quite a few old riverside folks, who had grown up listening to stories of the martial god coming forth and tales of corpses and a blood sea. But a story is a story, and at this moment, plunged into this frightening massacre, they realized its true horror. The heroic spirit Jade Maiden Sword sect suffered heavy losses, and among the surviving remnants, only a few elders remained. These few elders had once fought alongside Duan Yun in Lishan City and had a brief encounter. They ran quickly, and one soon realized, saying, "Why does it feel like the heroic venerate? It is the heroic venerate. Look at that sword chi." When Duan Yun casually unleashed the Jade Sword Finger Sword energy, sending people tumbling, they confirmed Duan Yun's identity. They hurried to follow, occasionally encountering a few escapees, whom they killed without exception. The heroic spirit Jade Maiden Sword sect had suffered heavy casualties during this period. Many in the sect had fought and died for the same aspiration with deep bonds, and under the joint assault of the White Sox and another branch of the Jade Maiden Sword sect, they lost many sisters. Amidst their sorrow, there was anger. Now that they found an opportunity to retaliate, they killed swiftly and fiercely. But even more absurd was that while Duan charged and took on layer upon layer of enemy resistance, they couldn't catch up. The heroic venerate's mount was too fast. By the time they reached the wooden house of Hua Wen and Hua Wu, Duan and his mount had disappeared. The Jade girls, though excited, felt somewhat emotional. The heroic venerate descended from the heavens, rescuing them from distress. Yet he was always elusive, like the dragon revealing its head but hiding its tail, difficult to truly see in person. To this group of Jade girls, it was a beautiful regret. In gratitude for Duan rescue, the remaining Jade girls, faced with the enemy's corpses in the snow, one after another began to exhibit their Dharma image. The Dharma images glowed like lamps in the approaching night, noticeable in the mountain forest. If they truly were lamps, they wished to be everlasting lamps, blessing Duan with eternal immortality. Only by deeply understanding the heroic venerate's thoughts did they realize how precious his deeds were. In this world full of treachery and murder, they had always suffered hardships, but since they practiced the Jade Sword True Understanding, they no longer only had the power to prevent tragedies on themselves and their surroundings, but could also fight for a broader heroic world. Their deceased elder sister Zhao Deli had said before she died, she wanted to see the world devoid of great evil, filled with heroic spirit, which was also the voice of many Jade girls. If before Duan appeared, this was only a fantasy in a daydream, or even an absurd existence within a daydream, after Duan appeared, they felt that all this had become possible. At least their originally suffering and painful life changed because of the orally passed Jade Sword True Understanding. Littleine carried Duan through the snow, her steps light and swift. Duan was already contemplating. Soon he should catch some wild game to make a barbecue. These days were spent only chopping people, having not properly eaten a decent meal. His mouth was fading to the taste of a bird. At this moment, Littleine suddenly exclaimed, "What is that?" Only to see several Dharma images emerge on the hillside over there. The assorted Dharma images had various appearances. Some bore a series of arms, some were elegant as immortals, some dressed in azure like literati. The most crucial part was, these Dharma images resembled someone. The old demon Duan on her back. They stretched over the hillside like numerous god demons. At this moment, goosebumps rose all over Little Yin's body. Duan glanced over and sighed. So it's them. Without any hesitation, he stood at the bottom of the hillside, the Jade Sword True Chi circulating within, instantly manifesting the Dharma images of Little Qing and Little Yu behind him. Look quickly. That's the heroic venerate's Dharma image. The heroic venerate has seen us. It's the venerable lady. There's another venerable lady. Clearly, the opposite party also saw him, and those Dharma images on the hillside couldn't help swaying with excitement. The two sides responded across a deep gorge. Thank you, heroic venerate, for saving our lives. Then, a voice of gratitude echoed from the hillside. Duan activated True Chi and spoke, "Be heroic and righteous, and stay safe. The green hills will not change, and the clear waters will flow long." The Dharma image lifted its hand in a gesture of respectful salute. The Dharma images on the hillside responded one by one. After that, the Dharma images dissipated, and Duan rode off on Little Yu. Duan had already been gone for a while, yet the group of Jade girls still stood gazing from the hillside. Gradually, the Dharma images of each Jade girl began to change. They became increasingly specific, for example, the Jade girl skilled in medicine. Her Dharma image originally leaned towards Duan image of a medical practitioner's compassionate heart, and now even more details appeared, like a gentle green light swirled around it. On this night, the Dharma images of the Jade girls all advanced further. Their power greatly increased. The bloodthirsty storyteller, who was lurking, watched this scene secretly, eyes filled with resentment and unwillingness. Heaven is blind. Not only does the old demon Duan become more deeply steeped in demonic traits, but even his followers are becoming more and more troublesome. On the road, Littleine continued to be rather unlucky. like when her foot slipped on the icy surface and she fell down the hillside. Duan Yun seemingly also followed suit, yet performing a light flip, he not only didn't fall but also stepped down on two wild rabbits that were in a loving exchange. The barbecue was short of ingredients, the ingredients just arrived. One was unlucky, the other lucky, forming a stark contrast. However, Little Yin's misfortune and Duan Yun's luck may not always persist. Midway, Duan Yun had already secretly performed another 7 points to the original energy, discovering that the refined returning essence chi he had consumed during critical hits was slowly dissipating, while Little Yin's frail returning essence chi column was gradually recovering. Of course, if he casually surged again, he'd continue to enjoy good luck, while Little Yin would remain unlucky. People cannot be unlucky all the time, just as one cannot stay at the bottom of the valley forever, unless you're under the gaze of old demon Duan. However, seeing Little Yin performing well, Duan Yun didn't continue to exploit her returning essence chi. After all, he understands the principle of not focusing on shearing the fleece from only one sheep. Because that jade girl bloodthirsty storyteller survived, the news of old demon Duan slaughtering through the White Sox sect, led by Gua Heavenly King, and the evil spirit Jade Maiden Sword sect had already spread widely. For a time, Qingzhou was abuzz with fear at the mention of demons. Know that Qingzhou is White Sock Divine Sect's territory. Previously, the heroic spirit Jade Maiden Sword sect caused trouble, still provoking much discussion. However, later on, the heroic spirit Jade Maiden Sword sect suffered heavy losses and was forced to flee. The White Sock Divine sect once again demonstrated their superb foundation to the martial world. At least in Qingzhou's domain, they are the eternal king. Who could have predicted the situation would change swiftly, all because of one person? Old Demon Duan. Martial world people often have the habit of local pride and regional injustice. Qingzhou folks exploited and slain by White Sock Divine sect. The lower-class martial world people aren't much better off. However, discuss Qingzhou's martial world figures, especially White Sock Divine Sect's sect hierarch and the 4 heavenly kings. Qingzhou martial world people will proudly puff out their chests. Meaning, martial world people outside Qingzhou coming to Qingzhou drop a rank or two. Qingzhou martial world people going to other states are treated similarly. In Qingzhou martial world people's eyes, old demon Duan was barely at the level of the 4 heavenly kings. After all, the word of Duan Yun reaching Mingyu Palace and defeating Jade Guanyin wasn't widely disseminated. Even those who heard of it considered it as mere rumor, never mentioning the status of Mingyu Palace's martial arts legend. Just the notion that the world's most beautiful woman Jade Guanyin couldn't be defeated. Some bloodthirsty storytellers disregarding the truth, even rumored that old demon Duan was corrupted by Jade Guanyin, becoming her puppet. In summary, words favorable to the enemy couldn't be uttered more. Yet Gua Heavenly King truly died in Qingzhou, breaking Qingzhou martial world people's delusions. Old demon Duan really killed Gua Heavenly King. White Sock Divine Sect's main forum, both stone walls and tables, were painted with black baseline. The 3 remaining heavenly kings, King Lu, King Zhang, and King Li were solemnly mourning a boot on the stone table. This boot was meticulously sewn with stitches onto bull head leather, with linings inside. This was Gua Heavenly King's shoe. Specialized shoes, as wearing those made one appear taller. Gua Heavenly King was utterly destroyed by old demon Duan. All they could recover was this boot, hence forming a token tomb from it. Initially, the 3 heavenly kings seemed calm, yet upon seeing the high inner lining of the boot, their eyes unexpectedly reddened. Within the sect, although the 4 heavenly kings competed with each other, they were also closely bonded comrades. They joined forces to defeat countless formidable foes, earning their heavenly king's fame and forged brotherly camaraderie. Thinking of this once arrogant brother now slain, how could the 3 of them not be sorrowful? Especially King Li, who valued emotions the most, born and died with Gua Heavenly King, couldn't help wiping his tears, saying to King Lu practicing the Forget Love Hammer. Give me a strike of Forget Love Hammer. Exchange me one night without tears. At this moment, King Zhang also looked at him. King Lu sighed softly and threw out his fists lightly. This punch seemed gentle, yet imparted a heavy hammering sensation. Fists landed on the 2 kings with a subdued sound, reminiscent of a warhammer striking a drum surface. The tears King Li almost shed vanished instantly. Presently, all three had only animosity united against a common foe. Old Demon Duan killed Gua Heavenly King, not only killing their close brother but also challenging them, as well as the face of their White Sock Divine sect. When did their White Sock Divine sect ever suffer loss like this, yet lost twice to one person? We must avenge this. King Lu, his hooked nose holding firm resolve, exclaimed. King Li nodded in agreement. Vengeance fiercely. When Duan Yun returned, the cold miasma of Bai Mei Mountain remained undispersed. According to the young officer from the Qingqi Bureau, the cold miasma would continue for a month before it ceased. The cold miasma was not enough to block Duan Yun and Little Yin's path. Little Yin could also pass through the poisonous miasma alone, for she was raised within the yellow jade, rendering her immune to all poisons. However, as she passed through the poisonous miasma, Little Yin still shivered from the cold. Yet the more chilling it was, causing a prickling sensation, the more excited Little Yin became. For sometimes pain did indeed heighten her sense of exhilaration. But Little Yin knew very well that this kind of pain was nothing compared to Duan Yun's methods. This prickling sensation could thrill her, but Duan Yun's methods could bring her great ecstasy. Yet within this great ecstasy lay immense terror, for under Duan Yun's exhilarating methods, she might very well die. And this fear and inner turmoil only continued to heighten her sense of exhilaration. Thinking of this, Little Yin hurriedly shook her twin ponytails to calm herself. Little Yin, calm down. This is the enemy who killed your mother. The enemy who killed your mother is torturing you. How can you feel exhilarated? Thinking of the identity of old Demon Duan as the enemy who killed her mother, Little Yin became even more excited. Whether it was an illusion or not, she always felt that the lotus mark made by old Demon Duan on the sole of her foot was heating up, to the extent that as she passed through the icy miasma, her skin slightly reddened. It wasn't from the cold, but from the thrill. Outside Gannan town, Lung Yiming and Lung Yishue continued watching from the tea house. The tea in this tea house was actually quite astringent, yet the two sisters had been drinking it from morning till night since it allowed them to see the mountain pass. If Duan Yun emerged from there, they could immediately spot him. Lung Yiming, looking at the mountain pass, said, Sister, do you think Su will be all right? Su, Sister Su. Lung Yishue was clearly taken aback and responded. Seeing her sister's reaction, Lung Yiming couldn't help but say, We've been waiting here, not for Su. Who else could it be for? Lung Yishue quickly affirmed with determination. Definitely for Sister Su. Indeed, that person wouldn't be in trouble. Seeing her sister's duplicity, Lung Yiming couldn't help but sigh. Yes, they were waiting here, waiting for both Duan Yun and Su. In truth, they couldn't say who they were waiting for more. Logically speaking, Su is like a sister to them, currently with an uncertain fate, warranting more concern. But Duan Yun's entry is also tied to Su's whereabouts, so waiting for him too is reasonable. Waiting like a longing wife isn't an issue. Although this could easily be mistaken for being Duan Yun's star fury, she feared nothing for Su's sake. In the afternoon, a figure appeared at the mountain pass. Lung Yiming and Lung Yishue stood up simultaneously, excited. With the cold miasma rampant in the mountain, it was especially dangerous. Locals wouldn't enter the mountain, nor would they exit. At this time, if someone appeared from within, it was highly likely to be Duan Yun. Even among the White Sock Divine sect and Jade Sword sect, few could traverse the cold miasma. Neither of us sisters could pass through. Naturally, few could be better at it than them. At this moment, Lung Yiming's keen sense not only made her nose sharp but her eyes sharp as well. The mountain pass was shrouded in mist. She could only see a silhouette, yet she recognized it as Duan Yun's immediately. It's Duan Yun. And a woman, is it Sister Su? Upon hearing this, Lung Yishue also became excited. But the next moment, her excited expression froze upon hearing her sister Lung Yiming say again, Duan Yun is riding Sister Su out. Riding Sister Su came out. Lung Yishue recognized these words and understood them well, but combined, they left her somewhat baffled. Soon after, she saw the silhouette that left her stunned. Sure enough, Duan Yun was riding Sister Su out. Duan Yun entered the mountain claiming he was going to rescue someone, but after rescuing, he rode Sister Su like a mount. And he claims not to be the old demon. Sister Su, where is your dignity as a goddess catcher? Didn't you say you would rather die than be taken and humiliated by the old demon? As Lang Yixue felt a mix of joy and anger, with complicated emotions, the sharp-eyed Lang Yiming puzzledly said, It doesn't seem to be Sister Su. She's bigger than Sister Su, but smaller than us. Cough, cough. The absurdity of this situation turned so fast that Lang Yixue couldn't keep up for a moment, nearly spraying the bitter tea she swallowed through her nose. Yes, Duan Yun had emerged. He had ridden little Yin out. His appearance not only attracted the sights of Lang Yiming and Lang Yixue but also everyone else there. Previously, when people from the White Sock Divine sect came here, they had seen experts riding powerful warriors, but they had never seen anyone riding a young, beautiful girl. Especially after seeing little Yin's face, this group almost jumped up in urgency. Such a beautiful girl, if she were theirs, would be worshipped at home like a bodhisattva. This fellow actually rode her like a horse. This man does not understand love, and the girl's fate makes their hearts ache. Heartache. Seeing such a beautiful girl being ridden was more painful than being ridden themselves, or their own parents. Some even developed a desire to rescue the beauty, wondering if they could save the girl from peril and have her offer herself in gratitude. But upon reflection, they dared not to. Anyone bold enough to be seen riding such a beauty surely had extraordinary presence. And people with such a significant presence usually had no small abilities, not ones these minor characters could afford to offend. At this time, people couldn't help but glance secretly at the two goddess catchers. These two sister flowers had already amazed everyone for 2 or 3 days. The dreary tea-house business being so good was mostly because of them. They only hoped that this righteous and beautiful goddess catcher would stand up and speak for the wronged young girl. Such a beautiful girl can't possibly be wrong. Yes, this is much like many situations in the martial world. For instance, although the Jade Guanyin violated countless people, her reputation among the common people was not bad. Some even dreamt of being violated by such a beauty, considering it a blessing of several lifetimes, worth it even if they died suddenly afterward. Unfortunately, the Jade Guanyin only targeted famous handsome men, and would never even look at them. The Red House Fairy, who was even less picky than Jade Guanyin, also wouldn't consider them with their deficiencies. When Duan Yun killed the Red House Fairy, this group was indignant and spoke up for her. They said that if you were noticed by the Red House Fairy while walking, it was your good fortune, and you should cherish it. Some even insulted the victims, saying that no fly attacks an unbroken egg, and wearing revealing clothes, how could you blame the Red House Fairy? The more they regarded characters like Jade Guanyin and the Red House Fairy as treasures, the less those women looked down on them. Being infatuated came with no benefits, which was another form of sadness. In Duan Yun's eyes, it was another kind of illness in the martial world. There were simply too many cowards in this martial world. Even some with Grandmaster-level abilities were downright cowards. Earlier, there was a great hero sect, specializing in dealing with cowards, rumored to be his doing. Actually, it really wasn't. He truly didn't teach people to specialize in dealing with cowards and fairies, but he didn't deny his link with the great hero sect. He thought that although some actions of the great hero sect were a bit extreme, this martial world was seriously ill and needed treatment. Who knows what had resulted from the clash between the great hero sect and the cowards, as he hadn't heard related news for quite some time. When Duan Yun rode over with little Yin, he actually felt pleased hearing some lively chatter. Being a person of the martial world, he enjoyed being part of the excitement. But as he approached, the surroundings quickly fell silent, with many secretly watching him and little Yin, making them seem like mythical beings. He couldn't help but tug on little Yin's ponytail, saying, "You're scaring them." Little Yin, looking defiant, retorted, "It's you, isn't it?" Just then, Duan Yun spotted Lang Yiming and Lang Yixue, jumped down and said, "You are here too, Sister Lang Yixue." Realizing, asked with concern. Are you all right? Duan Yun replied, I'm fine. Saying this, the three had already sat together, and seeing that Duan Yun hadn't eaten, Leng Ishua hurried to a nearby stall to buy some braised venison. For a moment, in everyone's eyes, the goddess catcher, who should have been maintaining justice and speaking out for the young girl, was being intimate with this man, which broke many people's defenses. Turns out, your Qingxi Bureau is also in cahoots, and even your goddess catcher isn't indignant. No, it seems that the goddess catcher likes this man a bit. Could it be that they also want to be ridden? No. Really no. Thinking about their inability to save the young girl, and that the goddess catcher might also be nothing but a plaything of this man, many left helplessly. Yes, everything they cherished, the women they desperately wished to worship, were merely playthings of others. It was really too painful. With one look, they saw not only the man's handsome face but also their own inadequacies beneath their skin, making them unable to bear to watch anymore. Seeing Duan Yun return like this, Lang Yiming and Lang Ishua couldn't help but have many questions for him. Duan Yun gave a brief account of his experiences and was very happy to hear of Su Lizzie's escape. Senior sister is indeed amazing. She managed to escape in that situation. She must have used new techniques she's learned. Our Qingxi Bureau's divine catcher is still quite formidable, Lang Yiming said proudly. Yes, when she first met Duan Yun, she was aloof. But at this time, she had long lost interest in competing with Duan Yun. Or rather, the entire Qingxi Bureau had lost interest in competing with old demon Duan. However, the goddess catcher still maintained her pride, like their formidable tracking techniques. And also, for instance, the escape techniques of Senior Sister Su were indeed remarkable. So how exactly did Senior Sister escape? Lang Yiming asked. Duan Yun said, I heard about it, but I'm not sure. Then just tell me briefly. Duan Yun said, Hua Wu said he thought the goddess catcher might all be my star fury, so he didn't dare use heavy hands, which allowed Su Lizzie to escape. Lang Yiming showed a shocked and distressed expression. Duan Yun couldn't help but mutter, See, I told you, you're not happy again. It's just evil rumors, Miss Meng. Don't take it seriously. Lang Yiming was a bit unhappy. Not just because it turned out that Senior Sister had escaped because of the lack of effort from the opponent, but also because of the rumor. Wasn't it rumored that only we sisters were your star fury? How did Senior Sister Su get included as well? No, not only Senior Sister Su, but the entire sisterhood of Qingxi Bureau had become his star fury. Lang Yiming was initially annoyed by this yellow rumor, but when it wasn't exclusively their sister's rumor, she felt a subtle sense of anger and loss. She wasn't even unique in this respect. Damn rumor spreaders. Before, she hadn't cared much about the rumors in the martial world, because there were many people and voices, and they dared to say anything. This was the first time she felt this furious over a rumor. Returning to the main point, hearing that Gua Heavenly King and the Jade Sword sect, along with the rumored girl demon child, had all been eradicated, Lang Yiming and Lang Ishue remained deeply shocked. However, beyond the shock, they weren't too surprised, because they know old demon Duan moves swiftly to annihilate. Thinking about how the dangerous forces here were cleared by young hero Duan, the two goddess catchers, like Duan Yun, felt a sense of relief. At least for now, the tensions here would ease, and dangers would be fewer. Yes, once the source of tension was eliminated, everything would be peaceful. At this moment, the sister duo goddess catchers looked again at little Een and asked, Is she truly the daughter of Jade Guanyin? For the mount, Duan Yun had mentioned it casually without going into details. Little Een, as a mount, did not belong at the dining table, yet she didn't shy away from the goddess catcher's scrutiny. She feared old demon Duan but didn't fear the Qingxi Bureau. If people here knew that her biological father was once the strongest divine catcher of Qingxi Bureau, one wonders what the thoughts of those present would be. Facing such proud eyes and seeing her indeed striking appearance and blossoming figure, Lang Yiming couldn't help but say disdainfully, Certainly as flirtatious as Jade Guanyin. Little Een said nothing but recorded this woman's name in her mental notebook. She thought when her sister comes, they'll deal with old demon Duan first, and then handle this woman. Lung Ishue was a bit more composed and said, "If Su managed to escape, she should have sent us a letter." Duan Yun was puzzled. But wasn't the mountain pass blocked by cold miasma? Lung Ishue shook her head. She should have other means to send messages. Duan Yun saw her remain uneasy and said, "Let me finish this meal, and I'll enter the mountains to check." Alternatively, he could take the sister duo into the mountains and continuously infuse them with blazing heroic spirit through the cold miasma. While Duan Yun was considering this, the young official from the Qingqi Bureau arrived and said, "Divine Catcher, we have news from Lord Su." Just as they mentioned the news, it truly arrived. At this moment, the young official took out a letter, and a pangolin crawled onto his shoulder. Lord Su plans to burrow through the cold miasma, but her pet pangolin can only dig a hole too small for her to squeeze through. She wants us to help. Lung Yiming heard this and said, "I'll go with my sister." With a gesture, the pangolin obediently jumped onto her shoulder. By this time, it was time to part. Duan Yun actually wanted to help dig the hole, but Lung Yiming and Lung Ishue had not invited him, and he was too embarrassed to volunteer. Previously, staring affectionately like a stone longing for its beloved, Lung Yiming was now casual as she cupped her hand, saying, "Duan Yun, the green mountains will not change, and the rivers will continue to flow. Miss Meng, Miss Shui, the green mountains will not change, and the rivers will continue to flow." Duan Yun replied in a very martial world fashion, cupping his hand. Then he watched the two women follow the pangolin away, as they once watched him enter the cold miasma. On the way, Sister Lang Ishue said, "Actually, regarding Su's matter, I could address it on my own." Her meaning was clear. The sister seemed unwilling to part with Duan Yun so quickly. However, Lung Yiming shook her head and said, "Sister, let's get to work. Women need their own careers as well." Lung Ishue didn't know why she suddenly became so ambitious. "Even if it's the rumored Star Fury, I'll still aim to be the strongest one," Lung Yiming said fiercely yet adorably. Honestly, people are often inexplicably foolish. As Lung Yiming and Lung Ishue departed decisively, Duan Yun felt a slight sense of loss. Now that things are almost settled, he decided to find a place to comprehend the peculiar Jade Sword True Understanding. He had skimmed it before. It's quite bizarre. Maybe he'd burn the midnight oil to understand it. However, he felt quite excited. As a martial world person, having martial arts to practice is indeed a kind of happiness. Thinking of this, he once again mounted Little Een and said, "Depart." Little Een didn't move initially. Duan Yun pulled her mane gently and asked, "What's wrong?" "I haven't eaten yet," Little Een said pitifully. "Eat later at the next stop," Duan Yun ordered. Little Een looked pained and could only continue on the road. Along the way, she glanced at the people around, her eyes clear. "Please speak up for me." Unfortunately, some around her bit their lips until they bled but dared not speak out. For a beautiful girl, it's not that we don't want to help. Seeing you suffer is more painful than suffering with my parents, but we just can't help, because some had guessed this might be Old Demon Duan. Sister Duo Goddess Catchers, Old Demon Duan's Star Fury. Isn't everything connecting now? Bamboo Grove, campfire, handsome men and women on horseback. Another day of camping in the wilderness. It's true that people in the martial world often eat and sleep in the open air. Duan Yun and the beautiful steed Little Een were doing just that. The mountain roads in Qingzhou are rugged, and it's common to be far from any village or shop. Little Een had been ridden for almost the entire day, finally finding a chance to rest. She leaned against the tree trunk, her clear eyes gradually losing their sparkle. Or rather, the once lively girl now wore a weary look. Duan Yun, however, wasn't tired since he was the rider. Only occasionally he would manage the twin tails. So, he took out that roll of the Jade Sword True Understanding and quickly browsed through it. Little Een saw and asked, "You know so many martial arts? Did you get them all from dead people?" Duan Yun shook his head and said, "Half and half. Half and half. Some were indeed obtained from others, some were given, and some I figured out by myself," Duan Yun said frankly. Little Een had no doubt about Duan Yun's words because, by her standards, old demon Duan's talent was indeed as high as a multi-story building. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to kill her mother. Even if she had extraordinary wisdom and talents, only after fully developing could she rival this old demon. She couldn't help but ask, "Is this manuscript very powerful? You're interested in it, and even that mad woman couldn't handle a few moves from you." Duan Yun glanced at her and said, "Whether the manuscript is powerful depends on whose hand it is in. Just with a few moves of an old ox plowing the fields, even you wouldn't be a match." Little Een immediately retorted, "Don't underestimate a poor young girl. Someday, I will defeat you." Duan Yun said, "Your talent is indeed good, but compared to my extraordinary martial arts wisdom, it still lacks a bit. Don't say young girl, even if you become a young wife, you wouldn't be my match." Little Een raised her chin, saying, "Then you wait. Wait. Then wait." Duan Yun no longer paid her mind, continuing to read. Little Een, on the contrary, was secretly joyful. The fact that Duan Yun said, "Wait," meant she temporarily had no worries about her life. Of course, this was just her personal thought, as old demon Duan was mad and killed without batting an eyelid. Maybe one day he might kill her, weak and beautiful as well. Thinking back to when she, as the eldest sister, first emerged from the jade, full of grandeur, believing that relying on her perfect body and strength, she would surely leave old demon Duan with no return. Who would have thought that was her best chance yet, resulting in defeat? Her initial sneak attack was truly her only chance to cause a threat. That time she thought old demon Duan was full of flaws, but the longer she stayed with this guy, the more she discovered those flaws were extremely small. When he seemed indifferent or asleep, she couldn't make a move. She could perceive the opponent being in a state of emptiness. The sword chi that could break through the body was likely more acute than protective true chi. If unable to strike successfully with one hit, the pain would still be hers. Before this, old demon Duan in her mind was utterly tragic. Now it turns out she is utterly tragic under old demon Duan, ridden daily like a mule. She could confirm, even a mule wouldn't be as wear-resistant as her. After all, she was the daughter of Jade Guanyin, the eldest sister among the 7 sisters, with extraordinary talent. At this moment, Duan Yun has pretty much ascertained that the manuscript had issues. The manuscript was also called Jade's Sword True Understanding, but it was completely different from the one Duan Yun had practiced before. He flipped through it again, found many professional terms he didn't understand, but through his extraordinary wisdom seeing the context, he roughly grasped the origin of this thing. This manuscript consistently adhered to one phrase: "All things of heaven and earth, people are the great medicine." Previously, the martial world could be said to be a world full of betrayal and killing. However, arriving here, there came another eat people. This is a world that eats people. The Jade Sword True Understanding on Hua 1 was meant for the female version, while what he had practiced before appeared like the essence of nature, meant to be consumed and absorbed by the female version. It turns out that being able to buy the manuscript for 1 silver was all part of a setup. This manuscript was intended to train people into the great medicine, then to be consumed by those practicing Hua 1 and Hua Wu's female version. Such a manuscript, not to mention 1 silver, even if given away for free, could possibly stick. That treacherous old man dared to sell it to me for 1 silver. I must find a chance to kill his entire family. Thus, the information suddenly becomes clear. That he and Hua 1 and Hua Wu could meet by chance was not fate, but a long-standing conspiracy. But why didn't he become the great medicine if the manuscript he obtained was to train oneself into such? In a flash of brilliance, he suddenly understood. Luckily, I have extraordinary wisdom, superior in skills. Under the blessing of extraordinary wisdom, he's already upgraded the great medicine skills. If Hua 1 and Hua Wu previously practiced this Jade Sword True Understanding, was the female version, then what he practiced with extraordinary wisdom is the male version 1 generation older. Afterward, the deception of Hua 1 and Hua Wu to learn the cultivation techniques from him made it so much more natural. The good fellows wanted to learn my male version, but these 2 fellows had exceedingly poor talents, ending up training themselves into women. This is also why they harbor such hatred toward me. Of course, this also explains the origin of Jade Girl Sword sect. They all trained this mispracticed female version. In this case, it seems that there are currently several versions of the Jade Girl Sword sect. His male version, this Mother of Herbs version, the daughter version to train oneself into the great medicine, the Hua Wen Hua Wu mispracticed female version, what the Murong brothers trained to be extraordinarily tough should be called the male version. The key is, this Jade Scroll also contains Hua Wen and Hua Wu's annotations, meaning that this Jade Scroll Mother version is not the only one. In other words, there are other medicine cultivators existing. Among medicine cultivators, there will be mutual sensing, and situations of mutual cannibalism might occur. One can only say that this thing is indeed wicked. Once this thing spreads, it would add another layer of cannibalism to the already treacherous and murderous martial world. Duan Yun shivered slightly at the thought. Thanks to the fact that I'm a once-in-a-million cultivation genius, or else wouldn't I have been devoured by Hua Wen and Hua Wu? Damn it! If Hua Wen and Hua Wu hadn't already been reduced to ashes, he felt an urge to pull out their corpses and whip them once more. This martial world is still too dangerous. Even as a battle-hardened man now, having slain numerous evil demons of various sizes, and with a heroic name spread far and wide, he still finds this world dangerous. It's truly necessary to eradicate evil demons to extinction. At this moment, Duan Yun felt a bit weary, and thus decided to close his eyes for some rest. However, lying there, he couldn't sleep no matter how he tried, always feeling like the Jade Sword True Understanding in his arms was filled with the word cannibalism. He simply sat up again, carefully studying this cannibal manual. Duan Yun decided that, since there is mutual sensing between medicine cultivators, he would enter the fray himself to wipe out these medicine-eating bastards completely. Under Little Yin's somewhat bewildered gaze, Duan Yun stood up again, cut his finger, let blood drip onto the Jade Scroll while breathing deeply. The Mother version Jade Sword True Understanding had a 9 deep and 1 shallow breathing method, the exact opposite of the version he initially practiced. It seems there is quite a connection between the mother and child versions. After the time of a cup of tea, Duan Yun only felt a trace of true qi appearing in his dantian, and this true qi quickly resonated with the aura in the Jade Scroll. The aura in the Jade Scroll swiftly merged with this newly cultivated true qi and began to circulate. Duan Yun opened his eyes and said, "It's done." With the foundation of the previous version, Duan Yun does not need to stay up all night and has already got the hang of it. As soon as this true qi formed, it was very aggressive. It's fine, yet it tried to devour other true qi in Duan Yun's body. The outcome was predictable. Had Duan Yun not protected it, it would have been annihilated by the moonlight-refined Jade Sword True Qi. There's a feeling of a short-armed, short-legged brat constantly provoking a big guy, ending up being killed directly by the big guy with a backhand. As soon as this True Qi appeared, Duan Yun immediately entered the next move, Jade Sword Distant Fragrance. The so-called Jade Sword Distant Fragrance is using this unique mother version of Jade Sword True Qi to stimulate nasal breathing, thereby able to smell the fragrance of the great medicine. The sensing among medicine cultivators is probably like this. In an instant, Duan Yun only felt a change in his nasal breathing, as if some secret was unlocked, enabling him to smell more things. However, after smelling for a while, apart from smelling Little Yin's body scent next to him, he got nothing else. Given my talent, this Jade Sword Distant Fragrance must have already been mastered. Yet I smell nothing because we are too far from the great medicine and the medicine cultivators. Hua Wen and Hua Wu were known as the Lingshui twin heroes. And in fact, Lingshui County is not far from Duan Yun's hometown, Lishui Town. Surely, that place is where Hua Wen and Hua Wu cultivated their medicine. Who knows how much medicine Hua Wen and Hua Wu have planted over there? Logically, Hua Wen and Hua Wu should have long begun cultivating the female version, and those great medicines should have remained uneaten and thus safe. But Duan Yun knows that as long as other medicine cultivators exist, the great medicine cannot remain safe. After all, in the martial world, too many are fond of stealing. Among medicine cultivators, Stealing and eating great medicine is not uncommon. After all, while the great medicine one painstakingly cultivated is indeed delicious, the stolen ones are even more satisfying. Duan Yun has decided to make a trip back there to slaughter all these cannibalistic evil demons. He had a vague feeling, could there be a higher-level version above this mother version? Medicine cultivators could also become someone else's great medicine. At this thought, Duan Yun couldn't help but grow more excited. Kill! 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 This time, Duan Yun wanted to kill more than ever before, probably because this manual is deeply connected with him. Yes, if his talent was any less, perhaps like the level of the Murong brothers, wouldn't he have become medicine in other people's pots? The original instigator of this medicinal manual almost let his brilliant mind as a young hero fall. Such a grave sin. If it wasn't for Little Een looking as if she's not quite up to it, Duan Yun would have ridden on her straight to Lingshui City overnight. To be honest, being out for so long, he kinda misses home. The already dusty pharmacy, with no one he cares about anymore, is still his starting point. It's been so long, who knows how the villagers have been doing. So Duan Yun silently changed his itinerary. He planned to first send a letter to Shining and others in Qinghe City, then directly return to Yun State to see if he could root out the black industry behind the cultivation of medicine. On the road, Duan Yun and Little Een passed by a major city in Qingzhou, Orchid City. This is a city where orchids gather, blooming continuously all year round. The city lord also has a name very related to orchids. Mr. Orchid. Mr. Orchid is not a person but a designation. As long as one is the city lord of Orchid City, regardless of male or female, they are called Mr. Orchid by the locals. From the suburbs to the city center, indeed, the city was filled with the faint fragrance of orchids, with people bustling around, lively and bustling. Duan Yun, spending a fortune to hire rolling doors people to send the letter, had no time to indulge in the local customs, already set to leave. He rode Little Een through the street, attracting quite a bit of attention. He had already gotten used to the peculiarity of this mount, but just then, a voice sounded from behind him. "Brother, where did you buy this mount?" Duan Yun turned his head and saw a middle-aged man riding a beautiful woman approaching. Judging by the couple's attire, they certainly looked like doctors from the Jiangzhong sect. Encountering someone else riding a woman like himself, Duan Yun truthfully said, "I didn't buy her. I was just out in the wild, and she came to me on her own." Little Een was so annoyed her teeth clenched, yet she couldn't argue back. She really had come to him on her own. The middle-aged man quickly cupped his hands and said, "Brother, so young and with handsome looks, it's no surprise that women seek you out in the middle of the night, wanting to sleep with you and be ridden." At this, the beauty under him couldn't help but steal a few glances at Duan Yun. Being praised this way, Duan Yun couldn't help but engage in small talk. "And your lady here, brother? This is my humble wife, also my senior sister," the middle-aged man introduced. Duan Yun couldn't help but marvel. "What a delightful couple you are." "Not at all, not at all," the middle-aged man replied wistfully. At this, the beauty couldn't help but complain. "You damned fool. Wasn't it because you heard old demon Duan's, ahem, that Duan fellow's story of riding a woman to kill the heavenly king, and got so excited but couldn't find anyone else, so you came to torment me? Let's focus. Time is running out." The middle-aged man couldn't help but feel embarrassed. "Zhao, why bring this up in front of a respectable man?" "I said time is running out," the beauty insisted, giving him no face. "Then add the time it takes to chew 100-year ginseng." Grinding his teeth, the middle-aged man proposed. "Double the price for extra time," the beauty replied. "Double it then. See if I don't ride you hard." At this, the man felt his dignity hanging by a thread and left after a few more polite exchanges. As they departed, Duan Yun noticed that besides the couple, there were 3 others who appeared to be significant figures riding women passing by. Duan Yun had no idea that, with the instigation of the bloodthirsty storyteller, his deeds at Bai Mei Mountain had already spread far and wide. Because riding a woman to slay enemies was so unusual, it triggered a trend of riding women. Yes, riding a powerful warrior was no longer a symbol of noble status. One had to ride a woman like old Demon Duan. And she had to be a beauty. Only then would one have face and prestige. How could the significant figures in the martial world lose face? This trend came so fast, and his act of killing the Heavenly King spread so widely in Qingzhou, all thanks to the bloodthirsty storyteller. Now, the bloodthirsty storyteller intended to put the White Sock Divine sect in hot water. If the White Sock Divine sect did not trouble old Demon Duan or avenge their Heavenly King, they wouldn't have the prestige. Everyone knew that Jianghu people, especially those from Central State, valued face highly. Duan Yun didn't know that the bloodthirsty storyteller had become deranged to deal with him. If previously, their calling him an evil demon was subjective but based on truth, now, they completely disregarded facts. For instance, they didn't mention Duan Yun killing the Valkyrie, which would enhance his prestige, and instead chose to stir the waters with lies. And now, the popular belief in Qingzhou was that the Valkyrie was unbeatable and immortal, untouched by old Demon Duan, but it was true that old Demon Duan had critical information about the martial god treasure vault and even obtained a martial god treasure. To get the treasure, one had to kill old Demon Duan. Another crucial point was that although old Demon Duan had killed Gua Heavenly King, he was seriously injured. Now was the perfect time for everyone to demon slay and seize the treasure. It's just that, since his debut, old Demon Duan has been rumored to be severely injured, but it's always others who end up that way. For a time, Qingzhou was turbulent, but Duan Yun passed through riding a woman, unmoved. However, behind him, a considerable number of eyes followed. Snow Mountain. The snow on Bai Mei Mountain never melts throughout the year. Ever since old Demon Duan wreaked havoc here, the mountain, already rumored to be haunted, has been said to echo with ghostly wails every night. It's said that after Gua Heavenly King and the Jade Maiden leader of the Jade Sword sect died, their vengeful spirits lingered, roaming the mountain in blood-stained clothes, killing people. Another tale tells of old Demon Duan's lingering demonic aura, causing anyone who mistakenly enters the area to fall or even give birth, which has driven up the price of snow ginseng in Gannan town. The primary ginseng men are mostly men, and they dare not enter the mountain to forage, leading to naturally higher prices. It was twilight, the moment before night fully descended, a time rumored to be most prone to hauntings. Yet a shadow appeared in the once silent snow forest. The figure moved swiftly across the snow, almost as if darting through. If you look closely, you would notice two blade-like objects beneath his shoes. During this process, true qi continually surged from the soles of his shoes, forming a stream of air, enabling him to dash rapidly through the snow forest like a specter. It was a man. At first glance, he might appear to be a doctor, or perhaps a skilled tailor, yet he donned a tight-fitting Taoist robe. The robed man slid along into the crevice in the mountain, the very crevice where Duan Yun killed Hua Wu and his daughter. Though days had passed, the crevice still reeked of the scent of Hua Wu's heartbreak arrows. But Hua Wu and the witch were long gone, leaving only piles of flesh ash mixed with snow and charred bones. The robed man stood before the shattered bones, absent-mindedly rubbing his hair, only to have his scalp and hair fall off. "I'm still too late," he said. Brushing the snow from his hair, the robed man suddenly had a needle and thread in his hand. In the next moment, his fingers danced, seamlessly sewing the scalp and hair back onto his head. At this moment, he exuded the air of a tailor, but those in the know would recognize it as the needlework technique of the Jiangzhong sect. "After teaching you for so long, how could you be so careless?" the robed man lamented after sewing his scalp. "Your master hasn't refined you into a superior golden pill, yet you left on your own. Truly unfortunate," he continued with a hint of regret. When he spoke of alchemy, his whole demeanor shifted from a tailor to a more profound Taoist. In the martial world, monks and Taoists were considered untouchable. After all, some demon monks had techniques more formidable than any demon, yet Taoists were generally seen as more untouchable. It was widely believed that Taoists were inherently eccentric. Seeking the Tao wholeheartedly, they were willing to commit any insane acts. There's a saying that Taoists have many sects, each with its own Tao, and anyone who obstructs them faces death. Moreover, among Taoists, particularly among skilled Taoists, there's often a contest for supremacy, and when two Tao sect masters meet, usually one must perish. In such an extremely ruthless environment, how could Taoists be anything but formidable? This man in the Taoist robe was indeed the master of demon child Xiao Ke. This master was exceedingly mysterious, even unknown to Hua Wu, Xiao Ke's biological mother. Xiao Ke suddenly mastered a fist technique, exuding authentic Taoist traits. She thought her daughter was exceptionally gifted, with extraordinary wisdom, and easily grasping the technique, making it only a matter of time to kill old demon Duan. Little did she know, Xiao Ke indeed had a master. This man in the Taoist robe was her master. Upon seeing his golden pill disciple already burned by old demon Duan, the robed man showed little emotion, constantly displaying a playful demeanor. Heaven and earth as a board, all beings as pieces, this martial world, with pieces like old demon Duan, is quite interesting, he mused, adopting an air of a sage. Suddenly, the robed man's expression changed, saying, Xiao Ke was prime alchemy material. Losing her, how can I defy fate? Destiny is in my hands, not in heaven. Whether demon or immortal, it's up to me. If old demon Duan dares to block my path, I'll refine him and devour him in one gulp to continue defying destiny. At this moment, he transformed again from a sage Taoist into a passionate youth. Indeed, even though he appeared middle-aged, he gave off the illusion of an undefeated, fervent youth, ready to defy the heavens and break waves. Why, with your identity, are you contending with a mere pawn? When this pawn leaps up and strikes me, is that contention? To defy the heavens, you must be like this to succeed. Defying the heavens is causing chaos, all you know? For a moment, it seemed like two people bickering within his body. This argument saw the emotions and demeanor of both sides seamlessly change within the robed man, an achievement even those with split personalities couldn't attain. Thus, it appears the saying that most Taoists are eccentric isn't entirely wrong. At this moment, the robed man suddenly lifted his own skull. The instant the scent of blood filled the air, one could see many branches beneath his skull. Branches with a fleshy appearance. The robed man gave a sharp twist to one of the branches, and his expression instantly calmed. Within the blood-drenched branches, one could see the robed man had not just one brain within his skull. 3 brains crowded in the cranial cavity, interconnected by branches. Previously, 2 of the brains wriggled violently, but with a single twist, one of them fell silent.